Well, thank you. I was going to say something that is like way worse than what Rui just said. So, yeah, we're going to do that. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Rui, for not making me talk. So, I am Andrea, and I'm a programmer, right? And if you really want to know more, like, check the internet. All of this time programming, it's been quite a while in the industry, made me experience a lot of success. But mostly I experienced what we all experience, which is a lot of failure. And a lot of that failure came from a similar place. And that place was that everyone was doing different things. Similar, but they were all going like, oh, I'm fixing this kind of problem. I'm fixing this other slightly different problem. And there's this misalignment. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. How do we share knowledge? Why sharing knowledge is hard. So first we're going to go like, okay, I know it's kind of hard, but why? Then how do we share knowledge? And then we're going to talk about this tool that I invented, so I kind of think it's great, but I also kind of think it's not great. So, I'm just going to tell you about it, and I'm going to give you some examples of how we use it in industry. As in, I tried it with people I work with. That's kind of what I mean by industry. And then you can ask questions, and then we can go and do whatever it is that we do in our lives. So, why sharing knowledge is hard? Well, this is why. Because it doesn't matter where the ideas come from. Maybe even the ideas come from the programmers, but at the end of the day, you ship what is in your programmer's brains. What I mean by a programmer is not like some special unicorn that was made of fluffy stuff. No, it's just someone that writes some code. If you're using a no-code solution, that is kind of the person encoding your domain. But I think we all know that, and I'm not saying anything like too strange. So the systems start off as small, and because that's how all systems really start. And sharing knowledge at that point is simple, right? It's easy. There's only a handful of people. When there's misunderstanding, it's easy to correct. You're like, what are you doing? Blah, blah. There's good feedback loop. People know each other through mostly failure and pain, but it's easy. However, teams grow. And it's like this, suddenly there's two teams. Actually, now we need to do this other thing. And now we need to do this other thing. Even if the company doesn't grow very fast, what you do experience is that even if there's time, because the systems are alive, and you're layering more code, this slightly decision that wasn't so great, now it's hurting. So as a base, that is hard. Just to spice it up, just to throw the salt of life there. As an industry, we tend to focus on how do we solve this problem. Right? We love understanding. Let's do the very hard thing that I read in this paper from 1972, which is super cool, by the way. History of programming. Woo, woo. There you go. Thank you. So yes, we love those problems. Now, when it comes to people, it's like a ghost. It's a ghost story, and especially if you're a lady, you have the thing of soft skills. So as an industry, we do that. And I felt that before. Maybe you don't feel it. Maybe now it's all good. But I have felt it. And so we kind of shy away as an industry from that, right? So we make our lives harder on purpose. Go us. So we had a difficult problem. We made it harder, but wait, there is more. We have other difficulties that happen because the systems, and I mean by systems, I mean software systems that are really socio-technical problems because there is people that make that software, etc. So other problems. The team changes. Some people leave. They take away all of their beautiful brain and knowledge that they have about how everything is built on top of each other. Very sad. Some new person come in, and they have new ideas, and that changes how we think. And now that's also kind of a problem because we need to adapt to how they think because their ideas maybe look good. So that added difficulty. Then, how about this? You work in a team, everything is peachy, your team is beautiful. But then you need to talk to other teams. I don't know about those teams. How do we interact with them, right? And then the difficulty about interacting with the other teams, even if they are cool as we are, is that it's the feedback is longer. Why did you do this weird thing? I don't know. Why did you call it weird? I don't like you now anymore, etc. Then, do you see how this problem's building up, right? So then you have more problems. Let's say you have someone in management somewhere says, let's do this thing, a long, far away thing. Everyone agrees is maybe a good idea. But then to enable that, you have these long-term plans. And to enable those long-term plans, you kind of have to negotiate these conflicting objectives because, like, well, if we need to do this, I have to do this first. No, I have to do this other thing first. Right. So we know all that's pretty hard. Then we have an even more interesting thing. In a team, it's not just all the same people that work there. That team is composed of people that do the code. I'm going to call them programmers. People that do the product stuff. People that design things. People that do quality things. Other people that I'm forgetting, and please don't hate me too much. So you have all these different roles. Even if you don't have a person with the title, whatever it is, those things need to happen for us to build a system. So the interesting thing about those roles is the information they care about is shaped differently. So a programmer will think about, see, I put this very useful diagram here. See, like you can be, if you're a programmer, you can be this one on the left. If you're a product person, you can be this one. And the bits that we care about all differ. So when we're sharing knowledge, maybe we skip some bit that's really important for the other person. So it's hard. I think we can all agree that it's hard. Yeah? Yeah, cool. Excellent. I was also checking if you were listening. I mean, we just had lunch. So how do we currently share knowledge? We share it by talking, like this. Well, in that case, it's a presentation. But we share it by talking, blah, 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 blah. Chat, online chat, email. Now, one really cool thing about these methods is that you get feedback. Or do you? Because I can be talking with a colleague, and they can be going like, yeah, very nice. But I don't actually know very quickly that what I said got in there the way I wanted, or that I meant it, and vice versa. So it's kind of hard. When it comes to documentation, we're also having a problem with feedback unless maybe you have some really good processes in place. I'm not going to go into processes because then this is going to be a very different talk. So similar with ADRs, these are architectural decision records, very useful, and there generally comes with a feedback process, but sometimes it's not followed. I know because I've experienced that. An RFC, request for comment, I really love this one. It's a request for comment. So you write this document, some other people can put comments, and you can completely ignore them. It's very nice. I mean, again, maybe you have feedback, you can address this, etc. Then it comes to presentation, and this is happening. So you might be getting what I'm saying, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're just thinking about your cat. Yeah, who wouldn't be? I mean, cats are cool. Or maybe you're thinking about something else. Or maybe I'm a terrible speaker, and you're like, oh my God, kill me. But it could be happening while you're doing some work stuff that you should actually be getting into your brain. So there is the feedback problem. Maybe you can tell me about your cat later, or how any of those things. Then you get to the workshop. This is what we're focusing on today. So the workshop is, you're supposed to be work in it. That was a revelation to me, this whole working while you're in a workshop. So today we're going to talk about bite-sized architecture sessions. As I said, I invented this, so I think it's great, but maybe also I think it's terrible. And it's a way to share knowledge. So you're like, okay, you mentioned this thing now 3 times. Tell me finally what it is. Bite-sized architecture session of T is a workshop format. So that means it's a highly collaborative meeting. It has a format, 45 to 60 minutes, so it's very short. It allows for these nice, not very long things. You're supposed to recur on it, and that's where you get most out of it. And you can use a wide variety of modeling tools. If you are thinking, this seems doable. I can do that. You're right. It should be simple. When I decided to tell people about this thing, I had to give it a name. But naming things is hard, so sorry that this is the name that you got. But also, I was inspired by how useful the Pomodoro sessions are, like the Pomodoro technique. You know the thing? You put 25 minutes on a timer, you focus on work instead of watching pictures of cats, and you work, and then after that, you have 5 minutes to watch pictures of cats. So this is, I kind of thought, okay, this is a very simple format, and I can understand it and follow it. However, it's very powerful. And if I talk to people and they use it and they get the value I got out of it, then that would be great. And it applies to a team. So it's like you multiply the thing. I also noticed that during the sessions, people have fun. When was the last time you were in a meeting and you were like, wow, that was fun? I mean, it happens sometimes. We're kind of like by chance. I consistently experience this. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like we're like, whoa, all the time. But it happens a lot of the times because the format kind of enables actual collaboration. It kind of has the vibes sometimes of a co-op board game, if you experience that. So that's pretty cool. Well, again, biased. So I said the bite-sized session has a format, and this is the format. You start off with prep. Any successful meeting, or will be anything, starts with preparation. And this is nothing different. So you prepare by inviting the right people and making sure that they are ready for it. That means if you're going to use a modeling tool, make sure they know it, or not. If not, teach it. Then you have the actual session. So in that day, first thing you do is define a goal. As in, what are you going to do in these 45 to 60 minutes? Obviously, you should come up with something before, not just like hope for the best. But this is very short, and you're making sure everyone knows what's happening next. So then you do Alone Together. Alone Together is at the heart of the bite-sized sessions. So this is a time when you are all in the same either physical or virtual space, and you are in the same room, as I said, but you're working on the goal. You just decided, so you know what it is. So you're drawing that, you're modeling that, and after there's a timer. When the timer elapses, each one of the participants tells what is it that they just draw. It took 2-3 minutes, so it's not a complicated diagram, but they explained this. So it's a bit atypical, but this has many important benefits. This quiet time allows people to really get into the meeting. So you turn up in the meeting and you were thinking about something, but then you turn up and you're like, you have to draw something, and you might as well focus because you're about to show it to our people. So that means you are kind of somewhat nicely forced into focusing on that. Then you start introspecting. You start introspecting like, whoa, actually, how does this thing work? How did we connect these two systems? Why did we do it? What kind of format does it have? And you have all these questions. Then it kind of, because of this introspection, obviously you learn what you don't know, which is always interesting. Then also because you're hearing other people, you tell your story, but then other people tell their story, and you realize all the bits that you've missed, all the bits that you didn't know about, or also maybe where they come from. How do they tell this story? It's the same system, right? So you know about this. And ultra benefit, if you're new to the team, suddenly you got like loads of information, very high quality information at a high level, which is useful. So also, this is a great setup for the rest of the session. This is a very short time. So I just told you lots of words for something that happens in about 8 minutes, right? But this sets everyone up for the next thing, where everyone works together to rebuild the thing that everyone just built separately, right? It's the same thing, you're doing it, but this time together, but you have the benefit of all of that new acquired fresh knowledge in your brain. And finally, After that, you do a summary. This is simply a very short retro that happens in the last 5 minutes of the meeting. So that's the high level of bite size. In their words, this is Jim from someone that I work with. This is what they said about it. And I think it really captures what I said in a lot more words. So you might be wondering, okay, that sounds really cool and fluffy or whatever, but what do I actually get out of this? Well, what you want to create, and the problem that I was trying to address, is this thing of just non-congruent thing of how people think about their system. If you're building this picture together, you're more likely to agree with the picture. I mean, you probably won't completely agree with it, but you will get it closer, right? And you have feedback. This is a thing you do recurrently, as I mentioned earlier. So if you don't like it, you can find why is it that you don't like it. So that's good. Even knowing that you don't like it and trying to understand it, it's a learning process, which is very powerful. So the participants build consensus together. This is really empowering as a team thing, as a team building thing that really is very good. You also remove the heavily relying on the one person that knows everything. It's one strong pattern of, that person always, someone has a question, it's like, oh, I'll ask that person. But suddenly everyone knows more things, so you don't need to defer because you know the answer already. And then, as a final bonus plus, because you're modeling together, suddenly you have a library that you can go and use when you need to design something new, because you've been creating these models yourself. So suddenly you create your own design tools. So this seems all really good. But maybe this is too high level, and we need some examples, right? So how about I will drive you through the first bicep session for something, right? So this is a session that I ran with a broadcasting company, and we did it online. So the first thing we did is we invited everyone in the stand-up. So this is an agile delivery manager, a product manager, a team lead, an engineering manager, and 4 engineers. As you can clearly see, who is who, right? I mean, very nice. I think their pictures came out pretty well. So we invited the people, and they were like, what is going on? And then I said to the team lead, we're going to do C4. Can you please make sure that everyone knows C4? And we're just going to do the highest level. So for those of you that don't know C4, C4 is a quite simple modeling technique that is box and arrows, but with abstraction layers, right? So you define, you say, listen, we're going to do the highest level. So basically a very zoomed out view. And that would be, I'm blanking on the name because this is a presentation, and well, that would be the context diagram, but you can do more. You're basically, the next diagram, you're going to zoom in into the blue thing. The next diagram, you zoom in. But I said, we only have 3 minutes to draw it. We're going to do this very top one, right? And we're going to design the system as it is, right? So the team lead prepared these people, all of them. The product people also design stuff, right? This is the question I always get, so just saying. As I said, we did this online. We set the goal, create the context diagram of the system as it is. Now, at this point, the important thing is that everyone really understands, because they are about to go and roll this. So you need to ensure everyone is ready. They look ready, these guys, right? So they go into this alone together. They have this timer for 3 minutes. And after the 3 minutes elapse, each of the attendees explain their models. Now, in here, these very blurry diagrams are blurry on purpose, because there's secrets here that I can't show you. But see how you can, with this level of zoom out, you can see that these are all very different diagrams of the same thing. But that's what they created. And this is actually what makes this thing so rich. because there's, you start the meeting, you say, we're going to do this, people do it, and they don't have someone other voice telling them what to do. They just kind of start drawing and hope for the best. They are actually less different than initially look like, but I think that's really interesting. Cool. So, it gets to the consensus. The team was able to draw some of the system. So this is the longest part of the meeting. It's about half an hour, right? So before they had this quickly thing, but then as they tried to draw this one diagram to rule them all, there's questions flow. Why are you doing this way? No, I don't like it that way. No, should we include this thing or not? This is completely common. Now, again, I mentioned that this has the feel of a co-op board game type thing. It's the team fighting against this diagram that it doesn't want to turn out right. And that's really cool. So they did that. Time, suddenly we got to kind of close to the time. And I was like, okay, we need to wrap it up. And they were like, but we're not finished. We haven't reached the consensus, as if there was one and only. And I had to break the news that you can't reach the consensus. You just approach levels of consensus. Now you have somewhere to start. You started somewhere. Now you did this thing, you're slightly more consensus-y, which is totally a word. And next time you can do more. So that's very good. And then we got to the summary. This is the last 5 minutes. You do this as a mini retro. The retro style I tend to use for this is, if you're online, you have a frame. You say you have a minute, put stickies of all the things that you learn and that you like and you hate it and whatever, and let's see what happens. And then you kind of quickly read through that and see. So the summary said that everyone was happy because they learned more than they expected, and that they wanted to keep going. So that is what happened in the first bite-sized session. Very nice. So there was a section here that was there until this morning where I went through each detail of these things. This session is now gone. This session is gone because it's in a website and you can read it, and also because I thought I had an hour, but I actually have 45 minutes. So, go to that website and read the stuff, or just catch me after the talk. This is some very kind of wholesome picture that I just wanted to put. Also wanted to drink water because at this point I'm like, oh my God. Llamas or alpacas, I really don't know. If you know, please let me know so that I am less ignorant. Also, I was recently informed by Rui that apparently llamas are in. And I kind of thought I was really special and stuff, but it turns out that no. Anyway, are there any questions at this point that you have? Any burning question? Because we can have more questions later. Or you're good? You're good. Cool. All right. So this is the second industry example. So you've seen an overview on how to run one session, and that's cool. But what do you do with this? I mean, it sounds fun, but so what? So it turns out that if you run many sessions, you can do really useful things. Like, for example, let's say you have to design a difficult thing and you have to work with multiple teams. You can use this format. Let's say you have to create something like a target architecture, and I don't know what that really means for everyone. So I'm going to say, let's say you want to create some sort of plan for what the overall system kind of actually looks like. How do you do that without burning out? You can use this. And I've done this both, but I'm going to give you the slightly shorter inter-team collaboration because I think it's a nicer introduction. So for this, we had to do some improvements to a video pipeline, right? A video pipeline is a kind of complicated thing where you turn a very large video into a suitable sized video that plays in all kinds of devices. It's really fun. I can't go into much detail because it doesn't make sense. But also probably I can't. But this part of the section involved 3 teams. So these 3 teams, And the complexity that we have, or what was complicated about it, is that there's loads of historical things. This is not a new piece of software, and it's been around for ages, and it used to do different things, but now it does these things, and we need to do it quickly. I'm pretty sure this sounds extremely familiar. So, and then, we didn't have to just fix it, because that would have been nice. No, we needed to add something else on top of it, and not make it worse, ideally, in the process. So we organized a few of these sessions. To do this, you were like, okay, how did you prep? We invited 2 programmers from each team. We invited a lead. And we asked the product people, how do you want to do this? And they were like, look, we're going to give you context from our side and then discuss afterwards so that we can tell you if everything is peachy with us, with the decisions you made. As in, are you making any decisions that affect us? And we felt that that was good. Obviously, this massively depends on your company and how trust, etc. So, on the first bite-sized session, on the first bite-sized architecture session, what we drew is the current state, right? So we had these 3 teams, and on the first team, the second team, and the third team, what did we do? I forgot. So yes, we had to draw these things, right? The current state. So what happened is we all turned up to this meeting, and we're like 8 people, 7 people, and we start drawing on the alone together thing, and then we go to the telling the story, and we find this pattern of like, we know each other, like I know my bit really well, and when it gets to the other teams, it's kind of like a fog. It's like, some box like this? How do you use my information? And the pattern repeats on each one of them, which is not surprising in retrospect, but we could see we were missing the thing and why this was useful. So when we do it consensus, we make this picture a lot richer. What happened a lot here was questions like, when you make this call, what do you use this bit of information for? Or could we take this out? Would it be possible to remove the X from this API? Or could we do this asynchronously and stuff like that? So that was what the key learnings around this thing were. There was a lot of like very deep questions, this stuff that because we worked on these systems for a long time, you kind of was like, I really love to remove that or add this. So that was really good. First session. Second session happened a bit later. So this was about the ideal solution, right? So in here, once we understood the current state, etc., we tried to draw, okay, given that we know now how everything's laid out, and also we need to add this improvement or new feature or whatever, and how would a real good solution look like? So we drew the thing. Each of us did the alone together, and the thing that emerged there is that a few of us were thinking, wouldn't it be great to do this improvement? And a few of us were like, wouldn't it be great if we could remove these other bits? And I don't expect you to remember the previous diagram, but it was a little bit more complicated than this one, right? So you go before, more arrows, other team. After, slightly simpler flow, still more complicated than probably needs to be. But a little bit simple. So when we were doing consensus, we found that the ideal that we came up with was a lot more complicated than that we could actually do in the time we had, right? So we had to finish a thing, but to really, really fix it, we just wouldn't have the time to really fix it. The problem in there was we were depending on the same third party, but we were using it slightly differently. But we went like, right, okay, let's get somewhere, and maybe we can do that later. So we reached a compromise. What I want to highlight here on this compromise thing is that reality is that we can't always do everything we want. And this was a great way to deal with that conflict quickly. So not only we found the conflict, we also addressed it and kind of reached a good compromise. So we're still happy with it. Finally, and offline, actually, we drew up contracts. And we did this with ADRs, architectural decision records, like whatever the contracts needed to change. We wrote the ADRs, shared it with the interested party, requested feedback, and got it. Actually, check that they got it. And then we addressed the feedback. In fact, we even got on a phone call and a video conversation so that we were all sure that things were all peachy. That's with a peach, the fruit. So everything was good. Now, if you want to read this in a slightly longer format, you can read it in this fresh book that is out of the oven. Woo! It's in chapter 17. And the author is here. Nick, say hello. There we go. So this bit is really small on this, but the book is wonderful. It's so useful. If you learn something here, you're going to learn loads on that book. So what happens with this? With the inter-team collaboration, what we got was cohesive understanding. We all kind of knew more or less where we were. If not, we knew who to talk to. Who would be a good source? What system precisely is the source of the problems? And also, it's well documented. We had ADRs, and we also have the models that we actually drew that live in a mirror board that we all knew where it is, and the password, if there's a password, and etc. So that's the end of the example. And now I'm going to talk about something difficult. The foundational pieces. Now, all those llamas were actually cats. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. That's just the way it is. Also, my cat was really jealous. So foundational pieces. So the thing is, like, this is a thing that requires to run a bite-sized session and to show what you don't know and show what you know. It's scary and it's difficult because do you feel confident doing that? You need psychological safety, right? You need to feel that you can share this, and if you don't address those, no matter what process or what tool do you use, you will have problems. So you need to address that. The cats are actually also remind me that sometimes working with people is a little bit like herding cats, and they seem quite unherdable, especially that one. So yeah. So you might be thinking, Andrea, you were talking about how knowledge sharing is systems buildings, and so far you've been talking a lot about sharing and a little bit about systems. So I really like this quote by Ross Akoff, where he says that, which you all are reading, so there's no point of me repeating it. And he talks about the interactions. And so basically, I think that when we talk and we collaborate, we affect that system, and that's essential. Basically, you can't have a system, a software system, without that collaboration, and, well, then that's why it is systems building. So, my conclusion, growth in systems leads to richer interactions. The teams need to understand their systems. Systems are the interactions of the parts. And so I guess my conclusion is that you should try bite-sized architecture sessions because it could help you. And with that, I thank you very much for coming here. And thank you. Also, I can do this. I can be fancy. So, are there any questions? Yes, question 1.
What would be like the maximum size?
What an excellent question. The question is, what would be the maximum number in a bite-sized session so that the session works? So I think a great number is something between 6 and 8. I have run a session with 10 people, and it's on the upper end. Yes, basically, if you have a bigger problem than 10 people, you need to break it down so that It could be that you're the host and you run the session, the same session multiple times. Yeah, the great question. Yes. How many sessions are too many sessions? Well, I think you basically need to, this is where the feedback is useful. The feedback at the end, that's the place where you start saying, are we doing this too much? Again, this is where the psychological safety aspect of it is very important, because people need to be comfortable with saying, hey, maybe we just drew enough. And it could be like, hey, maybe yes, but can we finish this other thing first? And then we kind of maybe, instead of making them every week, you start making them every 2 weeks or maybe every month. But the interesting thing is about having the practice of architecture, and so you're going to be uncomfortable at first. So you minimum need like 3 or 4 so that you kind of get over and you start getting a lot more out of them. Right. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the question.
In the case of bigger problems in multiple teams, what do you think of taking some champions of those teams and having a session with the champion defending or trying to have a final result with over team?
It's so the question is something like, let me see if I got it straight. You have an inter-team, like many teams trying to work together, and you have champions from different teams and they fight, and there is some lions. No, not that.
You make 4 sessions, for example, with 40 working on the same problem, they end up with something, and then you take those 4 something with somebody to defend that in 1 session.
Right. Okay. So, sorry, I got stuck with the lions. So you have this. You go over 4 sessions, and in each session you iterate and improve the whatever model you have. So you had these sessions with the same people. Well, okay, so I suggest that in this example that I show, you have always the same people, because what you're trying to build is a progressive learning of the same problem. So you talk today, and let's say it's the 4 of you there, just for argument's sake. So it's the 4 of you turn up the same day, and you try to fix some problem. In a week, you've thought about this, even if you didn't want to, you will still think about this. You meet next week, and you would be like, oh, okay, let's pick it up where we left it. And you do it, you do some other part. Like in this example, you did first the current state, and the second one was ideal solution, is the same people. So in this thing, you will do some other part of the system, or maybe you were like, I can't agree with you on this. So you do that. So what you're building is an iterative, like incremental improvement of the knowledge. You don't fight. There's no lions. There is just you can basically ironite the details together. So there is no need to compete the sessions. Maybe I didn't get your question.
That was not my point, but I'll go with that.
Okay, cool. Yes, for sure. Yes. Sorry, I got slightly distracted with the lion. Yes. Yes. Okay. So the question is, what if there's no consensus? That is a form of consensus. Realizing, so if you make a meeting about, say, the current state, right? And that's generally the point you start, but it's not the only thing you can do. So if you start there and you're like, hey, well, let's draw the system as it is, the highest level. This is the thing you're fighting the least about, because we all use it all the time, and it's anchored in reality. That's why the first thing is like, draw the thing as it is now. If you can't agree on that, you have some other problems. And even knowing that you couldn't reach this consensus, and I'm being slightly like funny because we're in a meeting and it's funny, but if you are in a situation like that where you can't even draw like this diagram that I showed very early that now I can't show, if you can't draw there is a person and they use the system, this is the third parties. If you can't draw that, the problem is not that. There is some other problem, and you need to look into what it is. If the problem is that you're trying to find a solution, and you can't reach consensus on that, maybe what you can do is something like, what are the solutions that people are proposing? And try to address one on each session. Let's say there is, let's change database or some other fun thing like that. And then it could be like, I want to use A, B, or C. You can say, great. Some team will go and do spikes and then do a session where you can basically design the system with ABC and the knowledge that you learn from doing those spikes, and basically decide there, because it would be slightly more self-evident. At the end of the day, if you do need to make a decision on technologies, that's not really the place for it. This is more about why are we doing the things that we do? And it could be that we don't like it, and that's okay. But it's more about knowing that that's there and why, if that makes any sense. Does that help? Yes, all right. Thank you. 1 second. I have an anonymous comment on here saying that alpacas are woolly. Thank you. And another important question, what is the difference between a llama and an alpaca? Sorry, we'll leave that there. Yes? Thank you for those questions. Yeah. An excellent question. Do you need a host? Okay, so I didn't put that there on purpose, and it was a little bit on the details. So it's in the website. So it depends. Obviously, I think it's very handy to have it the first few times. But if you don't have someone that can help you, then just someone basically get the whole team on board and say, like, we're trying to do this. Let's try to keep each other in check. Because I think a workshop-y thing like this should be owned by the people that are running it, because what you want to create is knowledge and learning. And that's something that, I mean, someone is doing maybe slightly more talking, but you want that everyone collaborates on this, and you can learn from everyone. And you want that to be imprinted in like the culture of these things, if that makes sense. But if you want to know more about how to host one, talk to me afterwards. Any other question? Yes. Cool. So the question is, what other things did I fail at before I got to bite size? So the one, my least favorite one is you talk at people and/or people talk at you. Basically this, but in slightly small, like someone tells you the solution without telling you why or knowing. That was my least favorite way to share knowledge. But maybe a personal thing, maybe some people really, so it evolved from there. Or I remember being very frustrated about, like, why do they not understand this obvious thing? Like, you come up with something and you're very excited, and then it's like, no, like I explain it, but basically just look like me going like this, which wasn't a very good delivery mechanism. So the thing is that at the time I didn't know about many other workshop techniques. Like, I learned later that they are a thing. Maybe a little bit. If I was to defend myself from this ignorance thing, it would be maybe to do that. I thought maybe they weren't my job to try to find something. So. I'm sure something like this exists in some other form, but I haven't found it. So if you know something that is similar to this, and I'm like, steely, I have done it without knowing, so I guess sorry. But if you know other workshop techniques, like after I did this, I realized there is event storming, there is domain storytelling, there are different workshop types, but they're super useful. I think they address slightly different problems, but there's loads of really good stuff out there. So if this is if you can take something away from this, and you take away, if you're not sharing knowledge efficiently, go and investigate. That I will be happy, right? So yeah, great question. Thank you. we have another anonymous comment, so I'm suspicious. No. Are there any particular tools you'd recommend or not recommend to reduce friction and make the alone together parts as fluid as possible, especially remotely? Great question. And another question about llamas. Wow, courageous. So the weird thing about alone together is that actually it's not very friction. You just need to gently push people into doing this, and they do it. So if you put people in a room and you say, we're doing this, it takes 5 minutes, and you cannot take no for an answer, they'll do it because they'll be like, at least it'll be done now. She'll stop annoying me. They do it, and actually it turns out that they go, whoa, what just happened here? So I think if I haven't experienced friction in a non-addressable way. If you, anonymous person, if you have any particular scenarios in mind, this is your time. Okay. I don't know how we are on time or anything, but my timer said that 46 minutes have elapsed. So are there any last questions? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.